All right, I can go.
All
No
right,
worries.
all right, let's do it. Cool shirt too.
Thank you. Alrighty. Let us see. Let me know when y'all can see my screen and it's not like lagging.
It's
Uh,
lagging a little bit, but it's okay.
Okay. Alrighty. So where I last left off from everyone, I think maybe a week ago or 2 weeks ago, um, after going through the process of deciding which direction I wanted to take, that ultimately led me to kind of like redoing the user flow to see where
Drop
everything kind
down.
of connected. And then that enabled me to decide, okay, it seems like there's a lot going on even with my original direction. So I'm going to focus my uh, ideations from the first point of contact where people first get into the app, what they see, and how that leads to setting up a smart calendar. So as you can see, the things that are X'd out are things that aren't in my roadmap anymore, at least for when I'm like creating screens. And then as I was ideating, I had a discussion with Jen last week in our one-on-one, and we decided like, okay, since the app has been updated and it's been there's like a weird time shift between when I started this project and now coming back to it, I'm going to adapt and utilize the updated design so that I can further scope my case study further and focus on the actual key interactions, that being here. So this first screen that I started to ideate upon is the Today tab. That's literally the first thing you see when you get into the app. Um, and what is currently there is this featured collection. It's not very relevant or useful. It's just whatever the algorithm or Headspace HQ decides they want to push out, maybe on a weekly basis, monthly basis. So what I thought I would do is how might I set up this space to highlight the smart calendar and reveal options to personalize your meditation. Right now, you can ignore the copy. Schedule Me is basically the smart calendar, and my lift up is basically the survey, kind of like personalized pick a meditation for me. So what I did end up doing here is here's some of the ideations I have. Um, so I thought about having visual cards with descriptions either in a stacked way or side by side. As you can see, I have V1, V2, V3 with this side by side, playing around with like the IA of like putting the copy at the bottom, the top, left aligned, and separating it between like the actual card. So yeah, just feel free to take a look at that. Um, then I also thought about how content is king and really just simplify that process and work with just the copy, and have no visuals, as well as what we have here is just pure icons and pure visuals and how that would translate across. Obviously, I think my take on this right now is that I think I personally like this one right here. It's a split between the visuals and copy. Because if you just have a visual, you really have to nail it down, or else people are going to get confused. And I'm still exploring some of those kind of like icons to kind of like let people understand, okay, this is what a calendar is, and this is what setting up a personalized meditation looks like. So while I'm doing that, I still think the at least my vote goes for this one here because there is enough context on the right from the copy as well as a visual leading into that. Mhm. And here are just some explorations I have. Feel free to let me know if you see something that catches your eye or you can think of something else. The whole concept of smart calendar, I was really bagging on the idea of like looking through the icons in Iconify as well as just like the Google public Google design system. This sparkle gives me the most confidence, either sparkle or like stars or the magic wand or even the lightning bolt gives me kind of like direction I want to take with showcasing that the calendar is smart to a certain extent. Um, and then with the survey, this one's a little more difficult, but I thought that keeping it on brand and adding the Headspace Sun Circle Buddy and giving it some sort of idea that, oh, it's doing something in the background with the sparkles, stars. I really like this one here with the cloud, because I feel like cloud is kind of on brand with everything, mind meditation. So yeah, that is where I am with this specific information architecture of the Detail tab. And then if we go here, we have the actual meditation screen. Oh no, not the meditation, the actual calendar screen. So this is assuming that you've already set up the calendar and synced it with your account. Let's say you have GCal already set up. So what we want to do here, the first point of contact is, how can we provide more context aligned with one's calendar? How might we keep options available, simple and relevant here, which is the kind of like the main attraction. And then this tertiary one, not so important, but I thought about how might we give users the ability to view more options or refresh the screen offerings. So with the first block, I thought about a notification style memo, created this custom icon here, have things left aligned. And then for the second one here, actually using GCal, so it's the user can't really misunderstand that instead of having my custom icon. And then there's always the simple copy, as I kind of like did here originally, to kind of just let users know. For example, there's 30 minutes before your call with John. Here's some meditations for you. Ideally, everything here, the main visual design ideation after this step would purely be from the copy standpoint. For right now, I'm just kind of looking at the way like how visuals and copy and like the alignment and even just like where I put it on the page or the screen will make a difference. As for the actual content on that screen, the two things I thought about was having block cards. This is pretty much a no-brainer because Headspace is currently doing this now. So not changing it, don't reinvent the wheel. That could work. As here's something I did think about is carousel cards. So the focus on the content will just be one thing you see. And if you really want to, the user really wants to look at more things, you can see this carousel kind of like progress bar. You'll slide, kind of like a slider, and you'll see one exercise each instead of just having 4 at once, as this could potentially be overwhelming and defocus an individual from picking specific meditations. And then the final part of this screen, I don't think this is as important and maybe not high up in my scope, but I just wanted to play around with this. The option to press a button to see more will give you a page of more meditations and exercises that might make sense, or it could ultimately just be a refresh button, and the 4 meditations or whatever is on the content page will just refresh, and you'll be able to see what's there, but you won't be able to go back to the previous suggestions.
All right.
Uh,
Oh, are
I
you?
still have more, but I think I'll just cut it off at that. Yeah, I have this whole ideation here that's more on the explanation of the smart calendar. Basically, like it's the first time you're setting it up. What do you see? Kind of like a pop-up almost, but yeah, I can leave that for later.
All right. Oh, did it work? All right. Entering notes in here, so I'll just go one by one. So yeah, I really like that this file is like extremely organized. I think it's like easy to understand the different interactions that you're working with, and by doing that, you're able to scope things down. The icons are really beautiful, and I think yeah, they're super fun. So yeah, those are things that I really liked. I think something that I would say could be like an area of growth for this time around. I noticed that this was a lot of visual design, but not like interaction design. So the difference it's like when you get down to like what is this icon going to look like and all those details, I would reserve that for the actual visual design. There is like a visual design module and a visual design template. So I think here you got, as you would say, lost in the sauce here with with the icons. To remember to focus. Right.
Mm,
This happened to Faye, like I think he got like really into the weeds about like specific memes. or there's something that happened, and kind of like forgot to think about like the overall picture, the meat of this interaction. I was like, so the questions I have were more around user experience and how the user would actually interact versus like visually what they would see. So my thing is like, how does the user go and see like their upcoming meditations? Is that what you want them to do? Is this like you only see this button once and you never see it again? Like once it syncs, it's done. Like that was like not clear for me. Like if there's an upcoming call with John, like how do I access that? Maybe I'm free now and I can like look at it. Like what happens there? So I would think through those design questions. Those design questions are more around like what happens if this? How will the user interact with that? I think maybe like sync with Julie on this because I think this and maybe Julie can speak to this. When she was working on wireframing, I think she was like stuck on where to start and sometimes like investing in like different areas that she could have. But we just wrote down like, okay, what do we really need to know? Like for freelancers, how are they going to sync the message? What are the steps? How are they going to view updated tasks? And then what happens if people are wanting to know where this is coming from? Like those are the types of questions that you need to ask yourself. And so for the smart calendar, it was like, okay, so do I click the smart calendar? Then what happens? Like, what are the steps that happens after that? There's probably like some kind of syncing screen. Like, I'm not sure. It was a bit of a jump. So I think maybe seeing what those intermediary steps were like could have been helpful. Um, yeah, I
Yeah.
think that something like that.
You, you think it's because I didn't explain like the kind of like the journey? Is that what caused confusion a little bit, or was it because I kind of dived deep into the specifics of each thing without enough context?
I see that the calendar synced. I would have liked to see like I see in this flow chart you have that, but it would have been helpful to know what are the actual steps there. And then
Gotcha.
two,
Okay.
how did I arrive to this call with John? Like I guess like I guess I thought there was gonna be like a deeper dive into like um okay, I'll give an
Uh,
example. For Poise, we are doing something kind of similar. We want to sync with people's calendars, and so we can help them prep for their meetings, similar to how you're prepping for someone's meditation. But we're not just gonna like launch them here. At least for us, we need to sync the calendar. They see the events, and then the user can probably determine which like which events that they want preparation for. We can recommend what they can prep for, but ultimately they have to get the lay of the land of like, okay, when are you inserting yourself? So that's what's really unique about Clockwise. For Clockwise, the like I think that you can visualize where they're going to insert yourself, and you're like, all right, something like that. Clockwise AI has like that feature. So I think that's what I think is the like the details of mid fidelity wireframing is like, okay, literally like step by step, like how would the user get here? Or maybe it's not like I think at least like a few more core screens. Maybe I'm not sure what those core screens would be. I think could have helped. Um,
Gotcha.
and
Okay.
yeah, an example of where you did interaction design well was when you showed me blocks cards versus carousel cards. That to me, you're exploring different interaction patterns. That's what I think mid fidelity is really good for, in addition to just seeing what the actual screen is. I really like this because this helps me see how is a user going to interact and consume information, but like you're not over fixated on like, oh, I'm gonna change like the photo of this image and I'm gonna do like these 20 explanations around the photo. It's like, oh, okay, blocks of 4 or swiping through, like those are interaction design patterns. And the choice is really going to make an impact. So I think if you go in the direction that you like the types of explorations that you did here, I think you'd be like good to go. Um, yeah, so
For
those
sure.
are some thoughts.
I think one area that I wouldn't say struggled in is because the nature of this case study is very content heavy. For example, like here, it kind of forced me to think about it's a very simple interaction because when you're on the today page or like when you're it's the first thing you see. And if you're going to interact with the screen, it's literally just you have to press the button, or you have to press something to get to the next step
Yeah.
from that
Yeah.
first page. And all they could really be is just like ideations upon like the layout, the what you're like showing visually versus copy. So that's kind of like, I don't know if that's like a area to kind of like think about, like if it's so simple like that, how do you really ideate on the interaction design in
Yeah.
this case?
So
Mhm.
I think everything about design is a gray area, and it's up to us to try to delineate between each step. So yeah, like in terms of like here's two buttons, or like they're next to each other, or I don't know, something else. Like I think that makes sense, but there on the right side there was like a whole, like I think the thing I was interested about the button is you're right, it is the copy. But the smart calendar, is that like the best word to communicate to the user what they should do? Maybe you could, like, smart calendar is one. Maybe you could use like schedule your meditation. Like that's another thing you could have explored. You're right that
Yeah,
content is king. So that's like so work on that, right? Like what is a user like, what are you want trying to communicate to the user like that they should be doing? Because I think like smart calendar or a personalized session, I'm not sure what that means. Maybe there are other UX writing explorations that you could have, and I think that that would have like been helpful, and then save the icons for later. I think the icons are more visual design. You
hmm,
could just have placeholders there and just focus on copy, and then visual design, then you can explore all like these details. But I just don't think it's like that when you get down to like what the how the iconography is going to look, that's when
visual.
it's visual design territory. But thinking of what the icon should be is interaction design. So I think you did that well, and that right, it should be probably a calendar because you're scheduling something. And so just having a placeholder icon, like it's gonna be something within a calendar. And later you think about how to visualize the calendar.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
yeah, that's how I would have separated the two.
Okay, no, that's good feedback. I was thinking about like in the back of my head, I had this whole time, should I just create a list of like phrases? I was thinking I would save that for afterwards, but if that's like a good place to do that right now, yeah, I would definitely jump on that. I think I was just having a little too much fun, like, oh, okay, there's this phrase, there's this calendar. It's like, all right, the visual design and the IA is just meshing together. And then that just kind of gave me more ideas as I was getting to the next portions. I didn't
And
really explain whole thing, but yeah, I think if I explained it, it would have made a lot more sense about like, oh, where does like setting up go, or like what's the first point of it?
oh,
Yeah,
oh,
because
okay.
I didn't
Yeah.
want to overly just kind of like saturate the discussion with just like, oh, a whole flow. I just wanted to focus it on the IA, but I should have clarified that.
Okay. And yeah, I think the visual design is like really beautiful. Like the icons are amazing. I think, yeah, I mean, I'm guilty of this too. Sometimes I'm doing just like wireframes and I'm like get lost into like, oh, I want to try this. And then by the time I know it, I'm like, wait, I'm probably not focusing on the right things. And
Doesn't matter right now.
that I think that's the hard part about wireframing is like trying to figure out like what level of fidelity is appropriate and what to like invest your time in, which I think is why like I think highlighting the portions is really key. Like you're right, I do think that the focus is on like these buttons. Because the scheduling is so important to people, we need to make it really simple to schedule. But then I thought like, is this a button that I want to see like every day? Because if it says smart calendar, it looks like I just sync it once, and then how do I access the call with John thing? Like, does the text change? I think those are steps to figure out. Yeah, I think
Got
Julie and I went through like something similar, so I don't know if you have like any like scenarios or helpful advice on how you got through that part, because I think you struggle a lot with like the intermediary steps to make the journey make sense.
I think we went through a lot of like information hierarchy. That helped a lot.
Okay. Yeah, in this case, it's like is like they say smart calendar is something else happens, and if they click that, where did they go next? And they click that, where else do they go next? I think
Yeah.
just like writing it in like a bullet point list, I think is pretty helpful. Sometimes I prefer doing that over user flow because the user flow is not like that complicated.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, I'll definitely do that. And when the next time I present, it'll probably make it a lot easier to digest as well. Because right now everything is living rent free in my head. But this is probably the first time y'all seen it, so it's all good. But
Yeah.
very quick, yeah. Just when you see this button, what actually happens is if it's the first time you're seeing the calendar thing, and you haven't set it up, this screen will pop up. So it's basically like I didn't talk
Oh,
about
that's
this.
cute.
But basically it's giving you context. Maybe there's a video, maybe there's something else. Who knows yet? Go crazy. But then where it excels is kind of giving the most kind of like relevant context here. We know it's rough having room to think between work and life, so we've taken the second
Yeah.
guessing out. Introducing Smart Calendar to sync up your existing schedule to help suggest gaps to practice meditations and exercises just for you. So
Oh,
yeah, you can
right, get that
now
marketing.
maybe like
Whatever
and
you
then
said automatically, we automatically find pockets of time for you.
okay.
Like up at the top. It looks like I have to find pockets of time. Or it sounds like you're telling me to find pockets of time. But you're saying you are going to find me pockets of time. I don't know, something like that. You can play around with it.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's good. Yeah, it's kind of like keeping like the casual kind of like first person, like you're talking to yourself type thing. But yeah, this is basically what happens if it's your first time. And then afterwards you set it up in your notifications, you sync your calendar, and then afterwards, once that is done in the future, every time you're on the today page, you'll see this, whatever it ends up looking like. But then when you tap on that, it'll start showing this instead.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, we'll just need to show those screens in the different scenarios. All right. I want to make time for Julie and Faye, but thanks, Chris. I love the detail. All right, it's getting more specific, so it's good.
Chris, have you looked into like I think Google Calendar when I think there's a button where it automatically like finds time for you to work out and like it fills it up.
Oh, it does? I did not know that. I'm gonna have to check that out. I was checking out Clockwise this past week. But yeah, I'll take a look at GCal and see if I can find it in the actual app.
Should I present? Okay. Share. Okay, so I'm gonna go from my presentation kind of page and then try to tie everything together because this week I worked a lot more on the client side, but I was just working on the freelancer side, so hoping that this presentation would just kind of tie everything together. Yeah, so I'm gonna go through the prototype after this presentation, but the prototype is a little janky, so keep in mind I will fix it. Okay, so I went through the presentation last week, last week, but I am working on simplifying the client and freelancer collaboration. Circa 2020, I graduated, didn't find a job, was stuck in Suwannee, and then I had these romantic ideas about freelancing. Turns out it's kind of like all over the place. Got super frustrated, did a deep dive into the problem, and then found out that it's just like there's too many back and forth and back and forth. Very, very cumbersome just to go back and forth between like emails and then go back to Dropbox and then like attach like and file to each task that the client like asked for and then like like go back to feedback, get what it's just too much. So initially I thought the problem was just kind of untangling this user flow and everything would work out. But as I talked with Jay Wong, I realized that the problem is that Dropbox is kind of disassociated from this whole user flow. And this is a problem because there needs to be a centralized area where there needs to be a centralized area where freelancers and client could come back to see what needs to be done per each file, so that they could be kind of linked to what needs to happen. So
But I'll stop you there because maybe not everyone knows Dropbox. What you said that Dropbox is not in the flow, but it seems like it is in the flow. So what do you mean by that?
oh, I see. So the client or the freelancer might first like send the initial updates that needs to happen, like a batch of files to the client, and they might see everything. But when it comes time for actually reiterating the changes that needs to happen, it becomes too much to ask a question, then link the Dropbox file back in the email, and then from the client side, they would have to read what's happening and then click on the link, check it, come back to email, and then write comments. So that back and forth is just too much. And what usually happens is they don't update the Dropbox files anymore. They just attach the files on like Gmail. Does that make sense?
Yes, so it sounds like they're already using Dropbox for collaboration, but it sounds like it's almost like they're doing like double work, like 'cause they have to copy the link and like put it here and put it with the updates. Yeah, I think that part makes sense. Also you can add like the other part about, and part of the reason why people do that, well, like people see it as like an archive rather than a part of a collaborative workflow. Like it feels very disjointed the way that Dropbox is. It's literally just a file cabinet.
Mhm. True. And yeah, so in order to kind of make Dropbox the central area where both client and freelancers could be aligned in what needs to be done, this is my current prototype. This is from the freelancer side, and say they had all these like files in this folder, the master folder. Then they would sync their message. And once they do that, the associated task that is parsed from their previous conversation with the client will come up as a list of updates that needs to be done. Usually each task has an associated file that needs to be worked on. For example, when the client says, hey, can you add more color to this image? They're usually referring to some kind of file. So usually each task would be associated with a file so that it's easier for both freelancers and client to understand which update needs to be done on what. So once you hover over it, it kind of just like tells you which file they're talking about. And then once you update it, it automatically refreshes on the task. And these are some of the other interactions that I need to kind of flesh out. But initially, I was thinking of like dragging the file that they could associate for the task that doesn't have any files associated with it. But once they complete all the updates that needs to be done, then they can share the update with the client. And this is kind of like the preview page that they would see. So they would see the latest update on the left and then the previous updates, so that the freelancers could kind of double check what changes happened. And as you guys can tell, like a lot of these changes that freelancers have to make, it's very minute, and clients obviously want everything to be perfect. So they would ask for these changes, but it's hard to keep track of these changes because they're so small. So it's helpful to kind of have a before and after, so that both sides understand what the progress looks like. So the freelancer, they kind of preview everything, and then they put the person's name, maybe add a note saying, hey, these are the comments that needs to happen, and then they would send the update to the client. So on the client side, this is what they would receive. So they would receive the clients, they would receive the updates through email, and they can look over it, leave a comment if they see that there needs to be more like edits that needs to happen. And then if they want to see the overall progress of the project and they can go to the folder where it's linked. So like the new updates are linked. So there would be like red dots. So it's easier for the client to understand like where the updates are. Another feature that I explored and I'm trying to like update is, since each message is parsed with the previous conversation the client and the freelancers were having, if you click on the action item, then it kind of shows you like where the action items are coming from. So this is where I am so far.
Yay! All right. I have some comments. So, yeah, I was able to do a usability test and get a first glance at this initially. I think, Julie, what you do well, I think this project was like incredibly difficult. It was definitely really messy. Like, what are all the steps in between and the considerations and all those use cases to create this flow? And yeah, just testing it out was really easy for me to see that, oh, like I can see this blue box in the action item, and like the way that you use visual design to draw my attention to show that there was the items corresponded with each other. Yeah, I feel like it was a really like magical aha moment. It was like, wow, like this really feels like shit's getting done in Dropbox. It's not just an archive where you just shove a bunch of stuff in there and it's chaos. Like, I think this helped me feel like, I mean, that's what Dropbox wants, or what most people want. They want to feel like the work that they need to get done is getting done, and we understand what's getting done. I feel like that's what I think this like really shows. And I think this could work with, I mean, probably more complicated depending on like where are people pulling in different pieces of information. I think email is a great place to start, at least for freelancers, but I could see this working well for people who use Slack. You know, other integrations can be explored in the future. Like I could see this used for internal purposes. Like let's just say we're a marketing agency and we're pulling tasks from Slack. Someone else wants me to do stuff to this. The client wants me to do stuff to this, and being able to see like where it's coming from and here, I think would be really great for the business use case. And you know, maybe this is a B2B feature, like I don't know, a premium feature. This seems like it would be a premium feature because it just seems like it's for collaborative work. And even then that can be an upsell because this is a premium feature or part of the premium package. So yeah, I think the other things. I think something to remember is like not everyone knows what Dropbox is. Like they know that it's a file storage situation, but they maybe don't understand like why is it bad that it's archival. And I think it was confusing. You're saying that okay, it's like part of the workflow, but now it's not. So I think just working on that story, like maybe saying that people are using it in their workflow, but they have to take multiple steps to centralize the information. At the end of the day, all the information is centralized. Action items, what I need, what's been done, files. But they have to like take multiple steps to like get here. Something like that. So maybe that's like another way to talk about it. Other things I think for the share updates, I realized like I wasn't sure if I was supposed to look vertically or horizontally. So maybe if there were like lines, I think I was able to tell because there's a leave comment. But I think in the other one it was harder for me to tell. So if there was like some kind of line divider.
This one.
Yeah, I think I was looking at things vertically because in the previous update it's grayed out. So my eyes were drawn to reading vertically. But I think if it had lines, then I'd be like, oh, left and right, because there's a divider and the dividers read their horizontal lines. Really small thing, but I think it's something good that could elevate it. So yeah, any thoughts about just like maybe your reflections from like what you learned from interviewing? Was it uncomfortable? Or actually I hear people don't like it when they don't love it when they interview me, but I don't know. How did you?
Wait, people don't like it when they interview you?
I think they feel like where someone said like they felt like self-conscious because they know I'm probably judging the way that they're asking me questions,
Oh,
which I guess I kind of am, but um, it's okay. Yeah, I'm trying to like not, overdo like on the call and just like act like how I normally would. But that's the
no,
reason.
personally, I loved interviewing you. I thought it was so much fun. I think it's kind of like, so currently I'm like looking for freelancers and it's kind of hard. So Jay Wong is the only person I've interviewed, but I think I am interviewing Andrew for the freelancer side. But
Yeah.
now, like, I have to interview someone who has never seen my work. I think that gets me a little like nervous, but
Uh,
I I think it's so refreshing to interview people and like see how they think from like a third person's perspective. Because I was talking to Chris and Faye yesterday, but I think we get so like trapped in our work that it's hard to kind of see it from like like first person's point of view. And Jay Wong, like you've seen it, but I don't know. I think kind of like creating the scenario and then like trying to like get yourself in how you really interact with these products in real life, and hearing it from another person's perspective was really helpful. Yeah, I loved it.
oh, yay. I'm happy you liked it and you were like scared or something, but yeah, that's good. I think it was because I'm in the target audience because someone did send me Dropbox links or they send me files. I think I was like able to relate it back to my experiences, which really goes to show why you cannot just interview random ass people because they're not going to be able to speak to it. Yeah,
Mm.
I think it'll be easy for you to find the client side because if someone's a client, maybe they've never seen Dropbox before, but like they're a client, like it is really up to the freelancer to use whatever service they want to use, and you just got to deal with it. Like if they're not dealing with Dropbox now, they're probably gonna deal with it tomorrow. Not tomorrow. When they get married and they have wedding photos or something, some freelancers. But yeah, I
Yeah.
would at least try to interview receivers. The client side, I think you won't have as much difficulty talking to them. And if it's like really hard to find like any more freelancers, maybe just stick to the client side and you at least have the receiver side, and what they think. I
Mm.
think that something we learned from sharing is like the receiver side, because I worked on the receiving experience team, uh, which is kind of like what you're doing. It is so critical for the client or the end person to actually understand how to use whatever is published because that motivates the sender to keep coming back. So like it is still pretty key if even if you only were able to get like that half,
Yeah.
understanding that you could still like interview other people over time. But I'm still happy that you chose to stick with this project. It's very personal to you. You're actually able to pull actual like deconstruct what happened in your experience and put it into your prototype, which I think is so cool that all this happened and this would have helped you. That's
Mm.
like pretty good validation if it like at least works for you.
Yay.
It would have helped
Yeah,
you
I
in
think
the process.
yeah, yeah, it's just like it's so satisfying to kind of like I mean I still have to do reiteration, but seeing everything come together is just so satisfying.
I
Um
know at one point you're like probably wondering like where is this going?
I was like, this is never gonna end, but I think we can kind of see it.
Yeah, I was seeing the receiver experience for the first time. Well, I guess I maybe saw it, but like you didn't even you showed it much, and I instantly was like, oh my gosh, I wish I could have gotten this in my freelance experience. And because I had worked with a photographer before, and then I think it was like the way that she organized her files made it really hard to see like before and after. So I had to like hunt through her file. She was using some website and it was like really annoying. I had to have her make changes and then you had to go to the email and then go to her website and then look for the new photos. But then all the photos look the same. There's just a
Hmm.
slight difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
I told her to um yeah, make my eye bags not look so fake. They can like kind of eye bags. Yeah, this looks so fake. So I asked for her to like tone it down a little bit. So yeah, so it's just like for any client experience, this is like the ideal client experience. I know what happened before, what happened next, and you did the things I told you to do. Perfect. Now,
Yeah.
that's the senders, that's always the hard part, but I'm really happy about the receiver part. Like, I wish that I could have this in all my client experiences.
Yay! I'm glad.
Yeah, it's very straightforward. That I think that's something to be really proud of. Okay, I've been talking for a while, but all right, kudos to Julie. All right, Faye, would you like to show today?
Yeah, so just in advance, Jen and I have like dinner plans around like 6, so we gotta like wrap this up like pretty soon. So I think I'm just gonna show a little teaser. So what I've been working on is my PechaKucha presentation, which is basically my case study, but aiming to, you know, have just one picture per slide, and then going over the different, you know, areas for, like, for example, introduction, then problem, research, yada yada. I was gonna suggest that you know, I don't really want to rush through this too much. Like, you know, maybe I can record this on Loom and then share it with y'all to get some feedback on the storytelling aspect, the delivery. It would that'd be cool? Because we kind of got to roll.
Yeah, I would love to hear.
Just talk through what you learned from the PechaKucha exercise, any advice that you have, and how it's helping you, or if it isn't helping you, talk about that too. But it'd be cool to show some like thoughts behind your visuals. Creating good visual aids.
Yeah, for sure. So it's definitely helping me. I think one thing I really appreciate is, well, I need to define what is a PechaKucha, because that is one of the new content that you have added to the course. So it's basically a presentation style where there's only one image per slide, and it really slims it down. You know, something that Jen talks about is if there's words on a slide, it just kind of expands and you start, you know, maybe like rambling and talking more than you need to. But just really condensing it with one image, and you have 1 to 3 talking points per slide. So what's really helped me, I think what I've really enjoyed is kind of finding some more like memey, like humorous you know, examples of, you know, relating with Khan Academy, and you know, for example, this one that says, you know, Khan Academy, you're the real MVP, and then, you know, there's a lot of slightly religious ones that compare Khan Academy with, like, you know, Jesus or the Messiah or stuff. So I think those will you know, get a little chuckle, you know, make it kind of a lighthearted environment. And then it was also really cool finding examples to show you know, the user frustrations. For example, one is, you know, having convoluted information, like, dude, like, you know, compound interest, like I think, you know, we probably have a pretty good understanding of compound interest, but just the way this is presented, it's like, dude, like, this is like very, yeah. And then
you'll see how not easy to understand it is.
yeah.
Good job.
And then this is one that shows like the struggle people have determining credibility. So this is like it like sorts things out as like reliable, generally unreliable, and then just shows it's such visual overload. It's like, oh my gosh, like this is overwhelming to decide, you know, even within the reliable section, like, how do I choose between ABC or CNN, you know, like, you know, which one's better, which one's worse? Like, it just feels like there's so much like indecision involved. And then I created this meme on my own. So you remember this, the stairway one. So most financial advice is they basically tell you, okay, just make sure to pay off all your credit card debt first. So they're expecting you to be able to take this leap and take this step, you know, but in reality, like, most people aren't able to, and there are things leading up to that are more actionable. So you know, I've had some fun kind of like playing with this, and so far, I've gotten to the point of getting to my validation iteration, going through some old prototypes and talking about like what my thinking was at the time, why I did what I did, and then why I ultimately kind of moved in a different direction. So yeah, I kind of in the process, but happy to record and give a run through and have y'all give some feedback. So
Alright,
Thanks,
well,
good to
I
hear.
remember before you really were loved exploring the memes that were out there in in the interaction design phase. And we ultimately decided not to go with memes, and now you get to have fun with your memes. So your meme abilities are still really useful. Yeah, I think you did a really great job of being creative with your memes, like creating your own content, and doing it in a really funny way. I think it really shows like the personality that you have. I think it's really fun. There was one slide I would probably work on, and I'd probably just visualize this yourself. Even though it's a picture, there's like still a lot of words in it. Can you go to I think it's your first slide about this one? Is it that one? Yeah, I think you just have the chart or something, or I don't know. I think you could just easily cut out the other stuff, like at the bottom, like state of personal finance in America, Ramsey. Like there's just some small things to like reduce the words. Like, I'm mainly focused on the graph. Even if you just showed the graph as part of your PechaKucha, like I don't know. That's like just some small things here and there to cut down the text that you see in the images that you have. But other than that, like this really small thing. I think it looks pretty good for now. Um, yeah.
yeah, sounds good. Yeah, I wanted to include this at the very beginning to kind of establish the urgency of how so many people are struggling with personal finance, and I have a lot of great stats to also share, so it's going to be like front and center, like, oh shoot, like this is a pressing problem. And so got that example from your Dropbox PechaKucha.
All right. Thank you. Yeah. I'll provide more feedback when you do the Loom video. But yeah, good exercise. It's in the template. Let me find it. Did I drop it in here? It's you can find it here, but I also I think yeah, I emailed everyone already this most updated thingamabob. Alrighty, well this concludes our call. Good job everyone. Let's sync up soon. Tag me more. Don't forget you can tag me more often. If you're stuck, just tag me in the comments. You might need to double ping me, and Figma comments are confusing, but I'll eventually find it. So I think it'd be good for us to just like chat in between more often, even in between one-on-one calls.
Wait,
Okay.
Jaewon, is this the
Bye.
last? Wait, I have a question. Is this
What?
the last weekly call, or is next week the last weekly call?
This is supposed to be the last call. I think 2 students are joining, but I think sometimes there's like a lot of leftover time, so we can probably like make time. I think it'll be still hard to fit like 7 people in here. So I'm down to like host like a few more separate calls if you feel like you need the extra support and there's like maybe too many people in the next one. I think I'd have like probably at most 4 people. So yeah, let me just figure out the schedule with this one girl because I think she's like moving, and so she's yeah, I have to figure out her schedule.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I'm happy to still like yeah, I think just let me know if you need more help and I'll still provide any assistance if you want to come to the next call or you feel like you want to keep coming, like let me know. I can just I think once it gets like past 4 people, it might get kind of hard. I think next week not much is really happening, so I think by then I think you might there we probably will have enough time depending on what you want to share. So yeah,
Sounds
just
good.
have the next call, say hello, share stuff. There's probably gonna be extra time.
All right. Sounds
Okay.
good.
All right.
Bye.